19th, 2024 at about 9:03. And I'm calling to order the meeting for the Home Inspector Licensing Board. Everyone have a chance to review the meeting, the minutes from our previous meeting that were
Yes.
sent?
I have.
Okay. Any discussion on those minutes? Do we have a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept.
Okay. We have a second. We have a second, Bruce. All approved? Aye. All right. Any opposed? No. Okay. Do you have any comments or any concerns from anybody present in the meeting today? Okay. We have the Department Investigation Division. There were a couple line items on that. Is anyone from the department able to address that?
Oh, yes. So this is Pamela Brown, Director of Investigations. I understand that you wanted to have discussions about submitting complaints. Janita had mentioned.
Yeah, we have some listed in new business that we'll cover later. There's a couple of line items from the investigation division. They're dated, their complaint status, I guess, dated November 23 through December 23, and then January 24 through February 24. Is there anything
Those are the
from those months?
No, let me just pull this up. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Pam, I could share it. Would that be easier?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. I only received the January to February report.
Yeah, so there's just one closed, and then we have two that remains open, and one was open for the one is closed, open prior, closed. So before you receive the last report, this one is determined to be a civil matter. There were no violations and dispute of facts. I'm just reiterating what's on the report.
Right, right.
But we have two remaining open. This is not really a high volume area
Right.
for us.
Right. That's good. Anyone have any questions about that? Here's Mark. Okay, thanks for joining us, Mark. Okay. Anything from legal? We have some old business which may regard legal, and that's revisiting and discussing the notification of our amendments to the regulations. Is anyone from legal can address that? Because according to our previous minutes, there was a notice that was going to go out prior to January 1st of this year. As far as I know, all I know is I have not received a notice. So is anyone available from the department to address this?
There's currently no one here from the legal division, so I can reach out to Paul Grabowski, who's the new legal director, and I can have him provide an update.
Okay. All right. Well, it's covered in our minutes that as a board, we had a motion to have this notice go out. As far as I know, it has not. Has any board members received a notice?
No.
Bruce, Mark? Okay. I know there are inspectors who are out there who, whether they've been notified or not, one way or another, they're still inspecting to our old standard with regard to smoke detectors. So I think it's very important that this notice get out there. And I just want that on record that it has not, and that we're encouraging the department to send that notice to all inspectors. Any other discussion on that? Okay. So a new business, yeah, we had some questions come up about some unlicensed inspectors. And so we wanted to discuss that. I've been in touch with the department. I passed on the names of the inspectors. One apparently is not licensed or may not be licensed properly, and another has the license has been, well, it's expired. It wasn't renewed.
Okay,
So, yeah, anyone want to
Is this-
discuss that?
this is
department?
Pamela Brown from investigations again. Those will be referred to my division, but before we get involved with this discussion, I just wanted to notice you that if everyone on this board is aware of those names, and I don't know if you've had prior discussions or shared those, then if there is a hearing, you would all have to recuse yourself. So I don't know if you have it, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that you keep it with you and then refer that over to us for investigations rather than discussing the names here or sharing it with the entire board, because then we would not be able to, and again, I'm not from legal, but it's my understanding we would not be able to conduct the hearing before all of you as a body.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think the names were passed on, at least not by me. I've been in discussion with Rachel Heiberg. Names were presented to me by another inspector. So the fact that I have the names, that doesn't recuse me, does it?
It's, I'll let legal be the one to determine that. It's based on what your knowledge is of it and if there has been any involvement, any conversations, phone calls. But you can submit those to us
Okay.
for investigations and then we'll go from there. Trying to get compliance or referring this to legal after our investigations for a report. And then they would, of course, do what they need to do in handling that enforcement piece.
Okay, okay. So what I'll do is I'll pass those names on and whatever other information I have to the department. And
Doesn't that make him not able to be on the hearing if he's the one submitting? Shouldn't be somebody else submitting the complaint?
I'm not sure what the procedures are here, so.
No, we have in other boards, they submit names to us. All right, but it depends on how deeply you get involved with the process. Like, are you doing your own little investigation or are you making phone calls, inquiries? How involved you are in that process will determine whether or not, just because you received a complaint, someone can come to you as a chairman and say, I've got this issue, and you say, okay, let me turn it over to the department, then that's fine. It depends on how you were involved in that once you received it.
Okay.
Okay,
Again, though, I would let legal make that determination. If it does come before you, they would notice you if there was an issue.
okay, okay. Well, I've done nothing other than pass the names on to your department through Rachel, through the department.
Okay, so we have these already and,
You have the names. I can provide the websites for the names and for the companies. But I've done nothing else other than receive that information and then pass it on to the department.
okay.
So I'd like a motion to, go ahead, Tim. Jeff? I can't hear you.
How many are we talking? How many?
Well, right now there's two
Okay.
names. There may be one other that I'm gonna bring up in a second, but I think I'd like to hear a motion to refer this unlicensing matter to the department for investigation. I can't,
I make a motion to move it on.
do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Mark, you in
Larry?
favor?
I'm in favor, Larry. I'm sorry, my mic is off, but I have a question.
Yeah, okay, I can hear you.
I'm wondering, are these inspectors who were newly licensed, never licensed? Are they people that have been licensed for a while and let it lapse? I mean, is it specifically that?
Yeah, well, all I know is that one individual was not named on our state list of licensed inspectors. The other license expired at the end of our last term and was not renewed. But that's all I know.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm in favor again then. If I
Okay,
just
so
wanted
the
to throw that
motion
through.
passes, and we're going to defer that to the Department for Investigation. The other matter that came up during a discussion was, is Maggie Poison with us? Okay,
She's not.
She is not, okay. Well, she has a an intern who is applying for his license, and his package is not complete, apparently. She does not have the inspector log of the 100 inspections. And apparently, this was, the log was sent, but she did not receive it, at least according to the inspector. So she just had sent me a message about this, and asked if the board had any advice. She's not with us today, so I'm not sure if she's done anything else. She did get a letter by the supervisor claiming that the inspections were done and there were some dates, but it was just a letter that was typed. It wasn't, signed by the supervisor. So it was just a letter that this inspector or this intern passed on to the department. So
He should have a copy of the 100. Shouldn't he have a
Yeah.
copy of the 100?
yeah, well, that was what I saw. I think the intern and the supervisor are supposed to maintain the log. And it would be something that you would think someone would, keep even after they made application for their license.
Right, of course.
So,
Somebody should have that. That should be resubmitted.
yeah. My advice was the same, just to, even if they have to reproduce the log, then do it and include it with the package prior to approving the application.
Exactly.
But, all right, like I say, Maggie's not with us, so I'm not sure if there's anything else we need to do with this other than to be aware of it. And that our
Or should we-
advice,
Should
Right.
we discuss this? We discussed as a board that should have a copy of the 100. And if they have to reproduce it, they reproduce it, or they need a copy, but they can't just do it without the 100 inspections.
right,
So I'll
Right.
make a motion. I'll make a motion that you tell her that they need a list of the 100 inspections, get it one way or another.
okay,
I'll second that.
okay. All in
In
favor?
favor. Yeah, in
Okay.
favor.
Approved. Aye, approved. Okay, that motion passes, and we'll pass that information back on to Maggie. All right, was there any other, I didn't have any other new business to bring up. Is there any correspondence? Any comments or concerns of anybody present today?
Larry, I had something I just wanted to bring up. This was brought to my attention a week or two ago when we had our chapter meeting. There was some question about how, with the reciprocal licensing with New York, how are we verifying the qualifications of people licensed in New York who come to do inspections in Connecticut? And what is that process? Because because the other way around, if you go from Connecticut to New York, you have to go through a whole, there's a whole process involved. You have to take a test, that sort of thing. But when they come in from New York, they don't have to do it. And one of the things that was raised to my attention was there's a Connecticut inspector who went to New York, went through the process of, this, the licensing in New York, and now is just doing inspections in Connecticut, but there's no verification of his qualifications on our side. How is that handled from this end?
Yeah, we've gone through this before. And Bob Kuzmich was involved when we discussed it before. We have no formal reciprocating type of agreement with any other states. And there was an attempt at that with the state of Massachusetts many, many, many years ago. And according to Bob, there was just like some type of a informal, I don't even think he couldn't even find it in writing, but there was some kind of agreement that he remembered. I don't remember it. So I don't believe we have any reciprocal type agreement with neighboring states. And guys coming from New York are supposed to make application to our department for a license. They're supposed to be licensed, and they have to submit their information. And if their information that they have in their training is compatible to ours, it was brought to the board, and we would decide if it needed anything else, and then the inspector would be informed that they would have to do this, pass our state test or whatever. And if their compliance was basically with ours, then they could get their license. But everyone conducting inspections in Connecticut has to have a Connecticut license. That's the bottom line.
All right, so Larry, I'll make a motion that
Well, hang on a
anybody
second,
from,
Bruce. Just hang on a second. If there are guys, their names have to be submitted to the department, not perhaps through the board, but they have to be submitted to someone in the department so that this can be investigated and then, ironed out. Bruce?
I'd like to make a motion that anybody from a reciprocating state, from anyone from any state comes to Connecticut and wants their license, we need to see the application and approve it.
That's the procedure.
No, is that in writing?
That I'm not sure of if it's in writing.
Okay. Well, I'm making a motion that needs to be our policy,
Okay, in writing.
in writing.
Yeah. Can anyone from the department that's on the meeting here, anyone have any comment about that? Rachel, are you familiar with this at all?
I wouldn't know for sure if this is, it would be best if like John Messner was here so he could kind of touch on this a little bit more, someone from legal. I really don't know where your not freedom lies, but I don't know if this motion will, I don't know what else will need to be done to get this to work, if it has to be done a certain way or not, is what I'm trying to say. So I can certainly bring this up with the right people on my side, and we can have a conversation and see if that's a process that we can move forward with. I just do not know the details of that, so.
Okay.
Well, do it. Let's just make the motion, accept it and vote on it, and then they can proceed with it, Larry.
All right. So I think that, is it easy enough to say that the motion be that we refer this matter to the Department for Investigation and Procedures?
Yeah, and clarification of the law.
Of
Yeah,
what the
but then,
procedure.
since we only meet infrequently, why don't we just establish what our position is by a motion?
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Otherwise, they may come back and say there is no procedure. We don't know, This makes it very clear that the board wants any applicant who wants a license in Connecticut from another state brought in front of the board to review the application and requirements, and we'll decide whether they need further testing or not.
All right. So let me just repeat what we went through with Bob previous, that anybody who wants to conduct inspections in Connecticut has to have a Connecticut license.
Well, that's true, but I mean, this still, if we understand that, and I know that the departments are a little different, because I have a lot of license. And sometimes what happens, Larry, is that they'll call the state, or they'll put in an application, and somebody can approve it and give them a license. Now they have a license and they can do home inspections in the state of Connecticut. So I think that by making a motion and making it very clear how we want it to go, puts it in writing on how the board stands on applications for licenses.
Okay. Okay, so do you want to just restate brief what our motion wants to be?
Okay, my motion is anybody that applies for a license in Connecticut from another state needs to put in an application. The application should go to the board. We should review it.
I think
And
the application should go to the state. Should
well,
go to the department.
it goes to the state. It will go to the state, but before it gets approved, it comes to the board.
All right. All right. So anyone making an application to perform inspections in Connecticut should make application to the department, and the department will investigate and refer to
Present
the
it to
board, refer to the board as necessary.
Well, no, that's not true either. I mean, if they decide they don't need to go to the board and give the license, then they're gonna do that.
All right. All right. So any applicant from out of state has to come before the board for approval. Once their application has been reviewed by the department, it has to come before the board for approval.
Yes.
Okay.
I second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no opposed. All right.
Can I
so
ask a
that-
question real quick? Hey,
Yeah.
Mark, you're saying this gentleman lives in Connecticut, but got a New York license and is now practicing in Connecticut?
That was the story that, as it was related to me, was in regard to how New York licensed inspectors would typically be able to perform inspections in Connecticut, but that someone was kind of taking advantage of the lack of oversight and doing inspections in Connecticut with a limited sort of, certification,
Yeah.
and
It could be
using that
open-
loophole.
All kinds of liability.
Yeah, there could be a lot of liability.
New York is much tougher than we are. I had a New York license. And if you don't keep up with, everything, they'll take it away if you don't. I mean, I think they're pretty strict, but if somebody found a loophole somehow to get a New York license, and then they, applied to Connecticut, and our regulations say that we just take their license, then there's a loophole there.
I don't believe our regulations say that.
Well, that's what Mark is
Well, if there's,
implying.
what
I'm
has to happen-
questioning.
I think what has to happen is if you have a name, you have to pass it on to the department, and they'll investigate. But, and like I say, I don't know that it's in writing anywhere, but the procedures are according to, board coordinators in the past and stuff, is that if you want to perform inspections in Connecticut, you have to provide information that qualifies you, and you have to make application just like anyone else would have to make application. If you're from New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, you have to make the same application that anyone in Connecticut would make to the department. And that application is reviewed, and if it looks acceptable, it's passed, and it wasn't brought to our attention. But if their requirements from whatever state didn't meet ours, then it was brought to us, and we would decide, well, this guy has to do more inspections, or this person has to pass our state test, or whatever. That's been the procedure. Now, And I think to
I
get
want
to
to
the
know how this gentleman
have-
misunderstood, and where he got his information, thinking he can come into the state without a license. Is this something
Well,
he
I
gets?
think what's happened, if I'm not clear about this, Mark is saying that it was easier for him to get a New York license. And then once he had the New York license, he applied for the Connecticut license. And the Connecticut license was given to him. And now he's
No.
doing
It doesn't sound like he has a
inspections in
Connecticut license,
Connecticut, right?
Bruce, he doesn't have a Connecticut license, Mark.
Yeah, I don't think he has a Connecticut license, Bruce. I think he's working off his New York license and just doing inspections in Connecticut, but there's no oversight into his qualifications, even though he's licensed in New York, and he's doing this in Connecticut. This is how it was explained to me.
Oh, he needs to have a Connecticut license. So we
Yeah.
need to name.
My question is,
we need to
where'd this guy
verify.
get
One
information
at a time.
thinking he could
One
do?
at a time. Tim?
I'm saying, where'd this gentleman get the information that he thought this would be possible? Is he getting information from New York saying that, hey, once you get a New York license, you can work anywhere? I mean, is this something that our legal department should notify New York saying, this is not acceptable?
No, I don't think,
Your inspectors have to stay in New York unless they have a Connecticut license. He must be getting the information somewhere. He just didn't pull it out of the air.
well, that's where we have to begin with that individual that we know of. And so, Mark, if some inspector brought this to your attention, then either you or that as an inspector or that inspector needs to make a complaint with the department, and then our department will investigate. There's no other way
I'll
of
find out
knowing.
more.
Yeah,
I'll
I
try to
mean,
get more information.
yeah,
I don't think this is any different, Larry, than what you're talking about before. If a person has a license, let it lapse and they're doing inspections. Or if you have a New York license and you come into Connecticut, you do you need to have a Connecticut license to do
Right.
inspections in Connecticut.
correct. Yeah. I mean, that's the bottom line, but, I think it starts with a complaint to the department about the individual. And then the
Right.
department, it doesn't come from the board to the department. I think it
Right.
has, and maybe we need more direction on that. Rachel, if you could perhaps look into that, but I don't believe inspectors should report to the board of these non-conforming individuals. They need to make a direct complaint to the department. And then the department will investigate and track the guys down. But I don't think you're going to find a notice going out to Massachusetts, from our department, going to Massachusetts, New York and Rhode Island and so on, saying, hey, if you're telling your guys that they can get a New York license, for example, and then march into Connecticut, and they cannot do that. I don't think that's the process. I think you have to go after each guy individually. And,
Right.
but
we
maybe
need
we'll learn others. I mean, look,
we need an example. So whoever has a name of somebody who's doing inspections in Connecticut without a Connecticut license needs to submit that.
right. So does that make sense, Mark? To get that back, get that individual who is making the complaint to you?
Yeah,
Or haven't-
I'll look into it.
Okay. Is there anything else from anyone? We've gone through comments, concerns. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Okay, I think that covers it for us, guys.
Okay, guys, take care.
Guys, have a good one.
Thanks for
See you later.
attending. Take care.